Hello, hello. Welcome all. This will be the first part to a four-part little lecture series that I'm going to do on this. And in this series, we're going to be talking about teaching history, specifically within teaching history. We're going to be talking about some of the issues I believe, as well as many other people believe, faces history teaching right now, as well as I think a couple solutions that I think will work. And then obviously we will talk about what I think you should do as the audience. But we're going to just dive right in there, and I just want to get you guys sort of thinking about this a little bit. What are some biases you've seen in history teaching? I want to get right into the nitty gritty of it. What are some teachers, some subjects, books? It doesn't matter. What are some things that you've seen that really made you go, now that just doesn't seem right? And I'll just give you kind of a moment to let that stew a little bit. But while we're doing that, I'm going to play a video uh, to sort of introduce our first topic, which will be political neutrality, which I believe is a very important segment of teaching history, and a segment I believe will expose the first flaw that I have found in many classes which teach the subject. So I will just play this video for you.
I was trained as an experimental social psychologist. So I do work on human judgment and decision making, particularly the errors and biases that people show when they make judgments. And really what changed my research was, this hyper-partisan political environment. And just looking at that and saying, well, what's going on there? And what a great example of how people's emotions are affecting their judgments. How is it that our sort of moral feelings and our moral visions change the way that we view the world? The theory that we work with, it's called moral foundation theory. The basic idea is there's kind of 5 things that people care about harming other people, particularly weak people, about fairness, about loyalty to family and things like that, authority and tradition, and the way things used to have been done, and purity. So this notion that there's certain states of being that are pure. And these 5 concerns across the world, you see these in all sorts of different cultures, but different groups differ in how much they weight each of those different kinds of factors. Liberals essentially care about 2 things, harm and fairness. If it doesn't harm somebody, or if it isn't unfair, then it's morally okay. But political conservatives tend to weight all 5 of these things as important. So they care about harm and fairness, but they also care about group loyalty, about authority and tradition, and about purity. If you look at libertarians, they're low on everything. So their worldview, in a sense, isn't a deeply moral worldview. It's more of a pragmatic, utilitarian worldview. And you apply that to different political topics, you can see sort of.
Okay, I'm going to stop that one right there because it just goes into talking about libertarians, and I don't believe that relates to what we're talking about. But I do want to mention that that video brings up a very, very good point. And sort of that utilitarian mindset is sort of what we're striving towards in history teaching, yet are lacking. And this is not surprising at all. I mean, we're very. If you've been paying attention any time in the last 5 years, you'll have seen that this country is very hyper partisanized, as he said. I believe that's the word for it. But essentially, we've become very, very partisan in that anything that isn't in our little in our little section of the woods, is wrong by association. So, if you're a conservative and you believe in, gun rights, then you can't believe in abortion rights because that's not within your camp, and therefore it's not in your prerogative. And those are just political views, right or wrong. I'm not here to discuss. But what I am here to discuss is how that's sort of starting to now bleed, or has been bleeding, into history teaching. So now we're sort of seeing this partisan view of history teaching. So instead of having just a simple set history, here are the facts, here is what I'm giving to you, I want you to do something with it. We're now getting, Republican facts and Democrat facts. We're getting this set of facts and that set of facts, which is pretty damning for the entire education as a whole, because we can't have 2 sets of facts. There is in most instances, there are a couple where there can be multiple views. That's fine. There's always more views, but there is only one set of facts. There isn't a fact for this side and a fact for that side. But we've started to see sort of that begin to happen. We live now in two different worlds, and I think that's um, sort of becoming a problem. And I think um, Dean Cantu here, he's an educator at Bradley University, says it pretty much the best I could say it. One of the many reasons that we that teachers teach is or are there is not to indoctrinate. We're not trying to have our students adopt our ideological positions. We're there to provide them with the intellectual tools that they can do their own self reflection, their own research, their own evaluation, their own analysis, and arrive at their own position. And I think that's flawless. I think that represents exactly what I want to get at is that is the ideal. Not just, I mean, and again, I say it for history teaching just because I believe history needs to be taught through an unbiased lens, but that can apply to any field. uh, English, sciences, math, doesn't matter what it is. An unbiased education is an education which works for the individual. So we're not trying to expose students to one set of facts or the other. We're trying to say, hey, here's the facts. Here's what's happened. It's up to you to decide how to interact with it. And there's another piece in here which I think paints it very well. Listening to your answer, two students can sit in the same lessons and come to two different conclusions about that subject. And that's entirely right. That's okay. If you it's not getting two different answers that's wrong. It's getting answers that are, and I think he says it very well here, don't have embedded biases and have not embraced stereotyping or are founded on fallacious argumentation. So, if they get two different answers based on historical context and hard data and are founded in fact, then that is fine. It is when we have emotion, we have bias, we have information that's just wrong or has been bent to sort of uh, appeal to your side of the party that we start running into problems. And that's just the first of many. We will have, in the second part, we'll be talking about the demonization of history, which I believe ties in very neatly to this one, which is where this problem sort of has, in a very gross example, gasoline thrown on the fire. Really, just it goes from bad to worse. But we will discuss that in the second part, and I cannot wait to see you there.